Paradise RPG the other night, weren't you?
I was on there, Shannon and Tim's Power Hour.
All right,
So
everybody,
cool.
we are live. Welcome into Tales from the Tavern. I have a great group of people with me here tonight. So I'm going to give everybody the chance to go around and introduce themselves. I am going to start with Saint. Let's start with you.
Hello, my real name is Chris, but for the stream we're going to be calling me Saint to solve confusions. I am the DM for Discount Dungeons. I've been playing D&D since I was 13. It's basically all I've played, and that's really me.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. Let's see. We were just having a conversation about remembering everybody's names. I'm going to skip over to Shiny. Let's go next to you.
Yes, I'm shinybatgirl on Twitter. I'm the DM for Team Umlau, which is an Acquisitions Incorporated live play 5e game on Twitch, and I use she, her.
All right, cool. Thanks so much for being here. Rolls, how about you?
Hey, I'm Rolls. Rolls with Advantage on Twitter and Twitch and lots of other places, really. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since, I think I was 12 when my brother introduced me to it, and I'm sure he was playing the original Dungeons and Dragons. But I just recently got back into 5th edition, which has been amazing. So, like the last 3 years, I got back in with 3.5, and now it's 5th edition. Love it. Glad to be here.
That's awesome. I'm super glad to have you here. Let's see. Nick, let's go to you.
Hey, so my name's Nick. I play a character named Relic on Know Your Role. We are a 5th edition D&D actual play. And like Rolls, I've been playing D&D since I was about 11 or 12 years old. Played a lot of 3rd, and then eventually 4th, and then now 5th. So I'm just relatively new to the online community. We joined about 3 months ago, and it's been awesome getting to meet people like this and people like you. So
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming. And Tyler, last but not least.
My name is Tyler. I'm the DM for Missrolled Adventures in Great Gods War. I'm also playing Anna Dinhart in our one-to-one campaign of Double Time, where we switch control of DM and player every real hour. I've only been DMing for about 2 years, though. I've been the first in my entire friend group to pretty much play. But at this point, we've been running our campaign for over 2 years, and we've been engrossed in it. It's begun to encompass my life. So though being young, I'm probably going to continue this for quite the long time.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all so much for coming on. It's so nice to have a bunch of new people coming to join us on the show. So I'm gonna start off with a pretty straightforward question, and also to our friends in chat, if you are new to coming to hang out with us, we absolutely welcome questions from chat. So feel free to drop a question. We'll try to answer it as we see them. If you tag me or tag a moderator, that'll just help. I'm Gamer Mom Luna in chat. That will just help make sure that we are able to see it. So my question to start off for all of you is, what is your favorite tabletop system or board game?
I have to go with D&D. It's my blood. I literally can't get it out of me. I also happen to adore Dread.
Oh.
Yeah, we did some one shots. It's not fun to record because you have to have a tower of clattering, falling blocks. But it's fun. It's really, the tower adds so much tension that like the storyteller can just sit there and go like, I'm just gonna let this tower scare the crap out of you. It's amazing.
I don't think I've ever played that before. I'll have to look into it.
No.
It's really simple. Do you have a thing of Jenga blocks?
That makes sense.
Somewhere.
That's all you need. You put it on a table. You get 4 people. 1 person runs the story. Other 3 pull from the tower. When the tower falls, someone dies.
I've
Oh
seen
my
this actually
gosh.
at a convention. Yeah, they did that at a panel, and they were under sea, and every single time they had to do something, the DM would determine how many blocks they had to pull.
Yeah.
And once the tower fell, then the catastrophic failure takes place, and then everything starts to go downhill from there.
There
But
was,
Dig that.
I actually like that system.
yeah, there was one point where we had 30 to 40% of the tower as just single blocks.
Oh,
Oh man.
And
Yeah.
Patch was running us, and he was just like, "Die already! I want to end this story. Die already!" We're just like, "Nope."
I've heard of people using Jenga similarly in whether D&D or any other role-based game where you can use it for like a heist, and as things happen, rather than putting it down to a simple dice roll, you might say, you know, well, a guard's coming down the hallway, pull 2 blocks, and you know, as the heist goes on, the more mistakes they make, the more likely they are to bring it all crashing down. So
That's clever.
That is
the only
pretty cool.
system that I know about is actually 5e, but I've been wanting to get into other ones, but I know that none of my players are going to essentially be able to maintain balancing between 2 systems, so I just kind of watch other
that's
people
hard.
use them.
That's fair. Getting into
Yeah.
multiple systems could be really confusing unless you're really good at
Mhm.
keeping rules straight. That's why, like, I recommend Dread to people that have multiple systems, because there's no real rules to learn. I
Right.
want to tell the story. That sounds like it's difficult for your character. Pull some blocks, and you're really good to go. It's so rules light. It's pretty easy, and since you don't usually have more than 2 sessions with it, you can really just kind of like, you know what, we played D&D for 5 years straight. Let's give a weekend break. And try
Right?
something new. Yeah.
5 years straight, only a weekend's needed to refresh.
Right. Fair.
For me, there really is no other game than Dungeons and Dragons. I might dabble in something else for a little bit, but I always come back to Dungeons and Dragons. It's the
Yeah.
only game I really care about.
Nice.
Well, yeah, that's the good thing about Dungeons and Dragons is it's so open that it doesn't really matter what type of game you like to play, what type of story you like to tell. It's literally just a mechanic for telling stories. So I play a crap ton of Dungeons and Dragons. That is my favorite system, but there's a couple little ones that I think are super fun. One that I want to run on my channel and I keep putting off planning it is the Honey Heist, which is like you play criminal bears. It's so cute.
yeah.
And everybody is John, or everyone is John, where it's sort of like John Malkovich. You each have your own motivation, a thing that you're trying to accomplish, but you all play one character, one person, and you have to basically roll to take over to dominate his actions at any time. And it seems super interesting, but it seems impossible to stream too. So we'll see.
Yeah, that could be a challenge.
Yeah, well,
That
that's actually one of the ones that we have kind of queued up to do and run. Because it's just one of those chaotic one-shot things that it just kind of like nice self-contained story. You don't need to like continue it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with everybody else. I mean, D&D is my go-to. That's the primary. I mean, I DM one game, I play in 2, and then I'm usually also DMing one shots just here and there where I can fill what little spare time I do have. But I definitely I will say that and the name is escaping me now, but the system used for the Amnesty, the Adventure Zone, Path of the Apocalypse. The names, it's a 2d6 based game where instead of rolling d20s, everything is based on rolling 2d6s, and you only have a few skills there. It's a little bit more streamlined, but it's a lot more narrative based, and it's not going to give you that kind of tactical, crunchy combat feel that some people love in D&D. But I think it allows you to tell some really cool stories. So I would love to try it someday.
Yeah, I think I was listening to a stream or a podcast like that. I think it's 7 to 9 is a pass, but with a cost, and then above that is a success. Below that's a failure, and then if you roll extremely low, it's a bad failure. So it's just kind of simplifies the D20 and gives you technically better odds to get at least a pass, since 7's the most common number.
It kind of sounds a little bit like Shadowrun.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
All right. I forgot about Shadowrun. I used to play Shadowrun.
It's a good one. I've been trying to learn Vampire the Masquerade. To your point, it's hard to learn a new fucking system, and especially like I was like, oh, Vampire the Masquerade, it'll be like Dungeons and Dragons, but vampires. No. I mean, it's similar in the sense that there are dice, but that's about it. Like, so it's been like 6 months.
Yeah,
That's
I
what it
currently
was.
play a game on another channel one night a week where it's a cross between we took the rule set for Savage Worlds and the lore set from White Wolf, and so we have the lore of all like Vampire the Masquerade and World of Darkness mainly, and it's like trying to fuse the two, and my brain just wants to explode sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
So Call
It's
of
a lot.
Cthulhu.
It
Yeah,
looks
pretty
like,
much.
I just want to say, yeah, someone in chat, Eli the cartoon. It's powered by the apocalypse. That's the name I was.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Any board games people are interested in? I know that I've been stuck
Settlers
playing
of Catan, absolutely.
Settlers of Catan. I've
Yeah.
been stuck on Betrayal at House on the.
I love that.
My friends and I had a 4 foot by 3 foot poster board with everyone's face on it, and then grids for wins or losses.
Oh my gosh.
We played a lot of Settlers of Catan. I mean, it got.
Doesn't really sound like it at all. It sounds like it's just kind of
Sometimes.
occasionally played.
Did you start building characters for it? That's the question.
I have never played Settlers either.
Yeah, I feel like a terrible nerd, but I've never played Settlers of Catan.
Looks like
Played
Never
it.
really interested me.
stream froze.
Yeah, it's I have it. I own it. I've played it once or twice. Like it's a game like I enjoy it with a group of my friends, but like it's one of those like, okay, I've played it now and I'm gonna put it away for another year and then I'll pull it back out again. So
Remove Disc asked if anybody's ever played Scythe. I have never even heard of it.
Can't
So
say I've
No,
heard
I've
of
never
it,
even
so
heard
I
of
definitely
it.
haven't played it.
well, there you go.
I haven't. No. Yeah, that's one I'll have to look up.
I picked up a game through a Kickstarter that is based off of the Steelheart series from Brandon Sanderson. It's a huge, massive co-op game, and it's got tons of dice. Tons of dice.
Two of my players.
It is really cool.
Huge fans of Brandon Sanderson.
Me too.
yeah. Somebody in chat also just said Unstable Unicorns is fun. That is a really fun one. I do have that.
We actually played that on Tabletop Simulator last night, and it took us an hour and a half to end the
I
game.
really do, and I can't.
It can be fun if you have the right group.
seem to
Yeah.
fix it.
It is a really funny one. Another one that I like, and I picked it up at PAX a few years ago is oh my gosh, I just drew a complete blank. Sparkle Kitty. And
Sparkle Kitty.
yeah,
Sparkle Kitty. Okay.
Sparkle Kitty. It's
I literally don't have anything open on my computer. Yeah, no, they know they're
Yeah.
working it out.
okay. So
it's not
just so you guys know, and so chat is aware, we have one person with a frozen camera. He's gonna drop out of the call,
It could come on at any point, just so you.
and it's going to mess up the crops on the cameras, and so we're aware of that. We know it's gonna happen.
Preparing
So
for the
we're all gonna
powered
be,
by the
like, in a weird
apocalypse.
place, like my hand might show up in somebody else's screen. Who knows? So just so you guys all know, that's about to happen.
Oh,
I think he's back.
Somebody rolled a 1, that's all.
Yeah.
It's Discord, man.
it's
I
the
know.
weather.
It's one of those things, man. I swear I think with everybody home more, it's just getting more.
Yeah, the bandwidth has been
Bandwidth.
out of control.
Yeah.
I know Zoom has seen like.
Fuck Zoom.
out-
That was instant.
And
Ouch.
now it's out there.
Never.
I was just gonna say it's seen like insane percentage increase since the
true.
quarantine in the U.S. began.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it?
Yeah,
It was
for-
I think Roll20 was having a huge meltdown because of all the bandwidth that was Roll20 as well.
I know. I feel bad for them too because they're such a small organization. They try so hard to keep everything live, but they just got bogged down.
Yeah, I think
And
several
what, their
streams
user
that-
base doubled or quadrupled in the course of a few weeks.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something crazy. I've never actually used Roll20, so it doesn't bother me. I use Theater of the Mind. But,
yeah, I like Roll20 a lot. It's super cool, but anymore, yeah, I just do Theater of the Mind. But there's so much cool stuff you can do with Roll20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That reminds me.
let's
Sorry,
see.
go ahead.
Nope, sorry. I'm just trying to troubleshoot too. Not sure if his cam is going to come back, but his audio coming through? I'm not sure if his audio is coming through.
I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah.
I heard him when it was actually muted, funny enough, and he was saying the camera or that the microphone's not on. I was hearing him saying that the microphone wasn't
Yeah,
on.
we can no hear you. Oh, Roll's typing. It's okay.
It's all right. We'll figure it out. Oh my goodness.
So
Oh
that
my
reminded me
goodness.
of a conversation we were having before we went live. The whole Zoom thing, and Shiny said that when you get together and play in person, you eat lots of snacks.
Oh my god, I eat constantly. It's so bad.
I don't when we're in person. I'm not the
constantly.
kind of person that really likes to eat in front of people, and we recently had to do our campaign over a Zoom call, and I could not stop eating. I ate so much food.
Yeah,
it was 4 hours long, 8 hours long, and I could not stop eating.
I usually don't eat on stream, but like I ran an evil campaign for years at home, and I record all my sessions, but all of my sessions are like crunch, crunch, crunch. I can't ever like make them a podcast or anything because they're just garbage. But yeah, we eat constantly when I play. It's either gummy bear wrappers or crunching.
Yeah,
I kept missing conversations because I was muted.
Don't watch me chew, you guys.
Right.
I know. I try not to eat on stream too. Usually, it's when we're streaming one of the shows and we take a break. It's usually like I race downstairs, grab a snack, and I'm like shoving it into my face, like in the 5-minute break that we're taking.
Every time I take a break, all my players are fine. I eat. I go to the bathroom. I get more food and snacks, but all my players just sit there and talk. And it's just me. I just have to eat every couple hours, or I'll fall over dead.
No, I don't usually eat. Oh, there he is. That looks like a phone.
Welcome back.
That looks like a
welcome
phone.
back.
You're still muted.
There you go.
Oh.
To stop catching on fire.
Okay.
We're hearing.
Back though.
Is that better?
All right.
It's a little better.
No, we're still getting feedback.
Yeah, it's like nearly 75% feedback too. I can hear clearly twice over.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking of streaming, it's really difficult.
I just saw you.
Right. Yeah. Anybody that thinks streaming is easy,
Just
try
watch
it.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
It is not easy. Being a content creator is not easy. If you're going to be good at it, you've got to work really hard.
Yeah. Just getting it to come through correct, like our first session that we had to do not in person because of the quarantines, my wife's audio just couldn't be used, so we had to cut random sections of her character out of an episode, and we had to put like notes, just like,
Aww.
but it is what it is. Like we can't help it. It's spoilers per episode, like a month from now.
Yeah, our first session was an absolute shit show. Thankfully, my viewers are very patient with me, but like at the beginning of every session, it's like my intro is, "Can you guys hear me? Is my audio working?"
Yeah.
Thankfully, they're very good to me. Danny is one of my diehards who is usually there to tell me whether or not my stream is fucked up.
That's like every first episode, though. I feel like when we first recorded our episode, we didn't actually have video until like episode 30 something of The Great Gods War, and now we actually have video of the table. But we didn't actually use the Blue Yeti microphone in it. It was picking up audio through my shitty laptop microphone. So the entirety of like the first 3 episodes, because we only sit down and actually play once every 3 weeks, and so I break them up into 3 different parts and upload them once a week. So the first 3 episodes are just utter garbage in audio. You can hear everything, but you can tell that it's not a good microphone.
Yeah.
To that effect, our campaign, we had 2 episodes that, even though I was using a Yeti mic, the placement was atrocious, and I sounded like I was 2 miles from the mic. People weren't coming in right, so we had to scrap 2 full episodes.
Oh no.
That's the worst.
So it was literally starts in the middle of like an arc, which actually makes sense because the combats I ran, I was so used to my Saturday groups where we had like 9 hours to play. We're so grindy. Like we were sitting there listening to her, like, no, never again.
Yeah.
So that's been a learning curve for me, is like making sure that the combats and things are actually digestible for people watching it.
Yeah, live play can be hard.
So,
Yeah.
Nick,
And
we're not
Yetis,
able to
as
hear
it turns
you.
out, faces, if you have a Yeti mic and you have it on the wrong setting, it can face away from you for
Yeah.
months before you realize that you're talking into the wrong side of the mic.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
I still don't know if I'm talking. It has the logo. I think that's right.
If you can see the
Um,
button, I think you're good.
Okay,
it depends on
mute
the
button.
setting you have, but yeah, if you can
Yeah,
see
that's
the
true.
mute,
The setting too.
Yeah.
but the
I
mute,
know.
if you can see the mute button or have it directly facing you backwards, it can hear you 90% of the time.
I was so wrong for so long. But yeah, streaming is tricky.
It is the
Ooh.
audio for my so when I started Tabletop Tavern back like 10 months ago when we first went live, I had just this really inexpensive USB mic because I'd never streamed before, and I was getting involved with a group of people who had all streamed before.
Oh god.
And yeah, so I was like, me and my little USB microphone right here. And so it's funny because as you watch the progression of the shows, you can hear my audio gradually improving until I finally got a great mic 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, yes, I sound awesome.
It makes such a big difference. It's crazy.
It really does.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Good for you for doing it even with minimal equipment. I mean, that's such a big deal. Just start, for crying out loud. Just start. So good.
Yeah, the biggest thing
Yeah.
I think, one of the things, I mean, here on our channel, we put a lot of effort into our audio quality. I mean, our video quality too, of course, but our audio quality is a big thing for us because we've watched between all of us that participate in various streams, we've watched enough streams where the audio quality has been like, this show would be great if I could hear what they were saying.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. People will absolutely, doesn't matter how funny you are or how good everything else is, if your audio quality is no good, they'll just give up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thing is, I still, even if you don't necessarily get a huge audience, I still just like to make it passes time. It's fun to do and just
Yeah,
edit and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just like playing with my friends and the people who show up and watch us. It's just that much more fun. Sometimes my chat is way funnier than my actual game. They're such goobers, and it's just so much fun. It felt really weird at first. I was like, nobody's going to want to sit around and just watch us play D&D. That's dumb. But the friends that do come and hang out with us make it that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Can you guys
great.
hear me now? by
Yep,
the
we
way?
can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So fingers crossed, I won't have any more issues. Sorry for the troubles. with
That's
the
okay. It happened.
worries.
That was
It's
Um,
technology.
Glad to have you
This-
back.
This is actually why we don't stream our episodes live. Because most of us don't have computers that can handle it. But yeah, I mean, what Shiny was just saying, I would love to eventually have a computer setup, but also just the ability to not run the full campaign live, but do kind of a one-off live episode as a one shot, or a way to have a little bit of crowd interaction would be really cool, or audience interaction.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's a dream to set that up for our end as well, but doing everything on my own in the background, I don't have the money to essentially front up to make up a whole computer setup
yeah.
to essentially start
Yeah.
streaming.
Yeah, it's not cheap. Danny mentioned that earlier. Like, in addition to being a huge pain in the ass, it's expensive if you want to try to manage it well. If you don't have a bunch of money to drop on nice mics and computers and lights, like I've been doing it little bits at a time, but
Yeah,
yeah,
same
it's
here.
been investments.
And you
Mhm.
can't forget about hosting costs for any web page you create.
Fucking seriously.
Where
Yeah.
you're
So
So many
storing
little
it, like-
costs. Podbean, Streamlabs,
yeah.
everything.
I mean, we have like the lowest tier for Podbean, and it's still is reasonable, but it's still something we got to pay every month.
Yeah, I have a D&D budget because I stream my game now. Like, I have to pay for D&D Beyond and Streamlabs and my website, and yeah, it's a lot of little things, but
Yeah,
just
because-
having the audience and the friends hang out is I think it's worth the investment for me.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are. It's something I've been saying I was going to start streaming or recording my stuff for 7 years before I actually did. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. You find an excuse to put it off.
It is. It's pricey, and my lighting setup is literally like a table lamp over here and like 2 desk lamps. Like the clip-on desk lamps with
Oh yeah, I'll have to
paper
set a
over
picture
them and
of my setup. Yeah, that's always fun.
I have one light source. It's the fan behind me.
It's just people's streaming setups are always super fun to see too. Like what ridiculous things you've rigged together to make work.
Yeah, totally.
Well, even like right now, because of everything that's going on, the office space that we have, you can actually see the computer monitors that are over there. It's 100% dedicated to home work, so I can't use it for anything apart from what it is now.
Work. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was my office before I was laid off. My desk was all my work stuff. Now it's back to all my D&D stuff. But
D&D work stuff.
Exactly. Real important things, right?
Right? Totally.
So Shiny, you mentioned D&D Beyond. So I have a question. How many of you guys prefer D&D Beyond over, say, hardcover paper and pencil?
I pay for D&D Beyond because it's easier for my players and my viewers to see people's character sheets, but I will be paper and pencil book D&D for life. Like, I love D&D Beyond. It does make a bunch of things easier, but the fact that I have to pay twice for my books and my digital content, never going to work for me.
Exactly. I'm in the same boat. I have 9 or 10 different books, modules, and everything like that. It would cost me, I think I did the math, roughly $300 to $400 just to buy all the digital copies of the books. That way myself could use it. And that's not even counting the DM bundle to send it to my players.
Right.
So having the
it gets pricey real quick. Like I have
so much better.
I now have all 5th edition books printed. I got my copy of a Wildemount yesterday.
Yeah.
So I have all hardback, all on D&D Beyond, and I have the thing where I can share with, I think it's now 5 campaigns because they increased it till the end of May.
Yeah.
But that's still $50, $60 a month, not month, a year. So, I mean, it is pricey, but it's an investment I'm willing to make since I like being able to access my books when I don't have my books. Like if I'm on vacation, It's like, I kind of have this idea for this character. I want to make sure it works, or this magic and it works the way it is, because I'm just writing something because I'm waiting for a line or whatever. I don't want to drag 900 books with me. So it's convenience, and that's what you're really paying for.
Yeah.
I use it for my groups because it's great. Like when you have a player who's out, like you might not be able to read their handwriting. They might have forgotten something, but it's all in D&D Beyond. You can click off
I'm so strict too about character sheets. Like if it's on your character sheet, it's not real. So
I think that what's nice about D&D Beyond is that ability to very quickly jump in with a character to just generate one, either the random one or the simple pre-gen ones. But yeah, it's tough to not have the books. I mean, I think every table usually that I know has their monster manual, their player's handbook, their dungeon master guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got all the books, but it's still, like you said, it's the investment for the convenience for me and my players, really. Like I bought all the books, but I don't want necessarily my players to not be able to access certain content because they couldn't afford X, Y, and Z book. So
exactly.
Yeah. I wish there was some sort of model where kind of like where if you buy a book on your Kindle, you can get a discount on the Audible version of it. Like there was a way where if you bought that physical
they
book,
really should.
You could get a digital code or something like that.
Like I know one thing that they did when D&D Beyond was first done, the digital books and the physical books were the same price. That pissed a lot of people off, but now it's like 15% less for the digital copy.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard because I think few people realize that it's 2 separate companies. It's not like Wizards of the Coast is responsible for Curse, who actually hosts D&D Beyond and everything. Like,
and then
Wizards has to make money.
Devs and like I said,
and the devs have to make their money. But it's a lot of work for us to have a slightly more convenient way of consuming that stuff. But yeah, I like my books. And my binders, like rows of binders back here. So
I like
have my paper stuff
for the layout. Like you can go in and make a whole thing, and it has the layout for you. It actually gives steps in how to make it. That's what I like D&D Beyond for. That's what I actually primarily use it for, is homebrewed enemies that I like to make, or homebrewed magic items that I write. All that stuff is extremely useful. It's just the book pricing and financing behind all that. The other thing that I don't necessarily like about it, and I don't know if this is different because I don't actually have a book for it, is if you don't have the internet, you can't access anything.
Yeah.
That's...
And
I use
when we
Google Drive.
recorded, when we first started, we didn't have any internet. When we first recorded, it was all upstairs in a rented out kitchen from my apartment complex. And
Oh, wow.
even my computer that I used to record Audacity with didn't have any internet. So we couldn't access D&D Beyond at all.
I mean, that's the advantage of having an unlimited data plan, is that I can just go to 4G and use my phone to access it when I don't have Wi-Fi. But since you guys have brought it up, how do you like creating characters for D&D? Do you like the 46 method? Do you prefer the point buy, the point array?
Point
great
buy
question.
for long campaigns. Point buy for long campaigns, in case, so that way there's certain players that aren't just completely gimped if they rolled poorly in comparison to the next person who rolled 3 18s. But for one shots, absolutely roll for stats for one shots, because those characters aren't going to necessarily matter.
Hey, let me just say.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go for
Let
it.
me just say that I agree with all of you about the D&D Beyond thing, but you know what? D&D Beyond is actually what made me cross over to 5th edition. As crazy as that
Really?
sounds, I'm totally books and paper guy, and I totally nerded out about all the technology involved with 5th edition. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so huge. I've got to do it. So I'm all in.
No, that's
I mean,
fair.
the combat tracker has been really helpful because I can put my homebrewed monsters into it, my players into it, and it's
Yeah.
nice, simple.
There's a phone
Now that
app
I'm
that I use
figuring
for it.
out the homebrew stuff, it helps a lot. Like, there are definitely some things I would like them to make more homebrewable, but it's coming along, especially considering the
Yeah.
resources they have.
Yep.
Mhm.
As far as dice and characters for campaigns, I kind of do. I guess I really work with my players, so I prefer to have them roll, but I'm pretty open. We actually do 2 sessions, and then I meet with my players and say, like, how are you feeling about your character? What is it you want to do? Do we need some stat changes? Do we need some class changes? I let them work around a little bit and figure out where they get really comfortable with their character.
Yeah.
That's good, especially with like new players.
Yeah.
That kind of flexibility is a huge change. Like, since I didn't have any players that knew the game, a lot of homebrewed rules came into play, especially with spellcasters, because some spellcasting classes are just, you are set in stone until you level up and all this other stuff. It gets really intense for somebody who doesn't necessarily know the game. So I like the idea of waiting 2 sessions in, asking your players what they might want to do. That's a super good tactic,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially if it's a long-term campaign, you want people to be invested in the characters that they build.
Yeah,
exactly.
We've actually joked on Know Your Role often with Marvin, who plays Gorlax. He's a Goliath blood hunter, but he very much plays as if he is a barbarian. He fights with a big 2-handed axe, hammer, excuse me, and like runs in and basically rages, not mechanically, but essentially. And we've joked that one day we're going to let his character get a concussion and he's going to wake up as a barbarian instead of a blood hunter. But he hasn't taken us up on it yet. He's still digging the blood hunter aspect. But
I think chat should be able to vote on that and just make it happen.
yeah, right.
Do it.
That's a great idea.
I let my chat affect
can't
my
go
game
wrong
way
in
more
any
than I
way.
probably should.
Yeah.
We
What do
actually-
we? Oh, go ahead, Luna.
I was just going to say, we actually do that here on our channel for our streams. We use the channel points, and people can use the
Same.
channel points, to buy a +1, a +2, or a +3 to give to any of the party members or to the DM. Or they can buy an advantage roll or a disadvantage roll. They give the advantage roll to any of the players they want, or they can give the disadvantage roll to the DM to hand out at their discretion. And
Yeah,
then,
it's fun.
Yeah, and then our Monday night campaign is a Savage Worlds campaign, so they can use their channel points to to give bennies, which is like a reroll token to the players for that campaign.
Yeah, we have a bunch of weird stuff. We call them brownie points, but yes, Leela showed up. But yeah, they can do like wild magic surges. They can reward specific players, but a bunch of them keep rewarding NPCs instead of players. Show Cat. Here's Cat. She couldn't do bother.
Aww.
At least your cat's social. Mine's downstairs with my wife ignoring me.
Whenever she hears me talking, I swear to Christ, she shows up during every stream. She's like, "Oh, you're talking? You must be talking to me."
Yeah, my dog was barking. I don't know if anyone caught it. I think I muted my mic before he got the second one. But yeah, he's somewhere in the house barking at something.
That's perfect.
Gotta love pets.
Probably Shiny's cat. He probably sensed.
Yeah, probably.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
On the topic for character creation, what's your kind of first step to making a character specifically? Like, do you pay attention to what class you want to build first, or you go into backstory and then build it on that? Like, what's your favorite part to?
If you're talking to me, I am a mechanics guy. I start with the mechanics I want the character to have, and then work from there. And since I did a lot of one-shots in college, backstory was always tertiary to playing something fun at the table. But this, for the Discounts crew, we actually started off as a one-shot that never came. So our player Sean, the player Skizix, insisted we do 3d6 in order.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
So
that's severe.
It was brutal. Like,
yeah.
One of the characters, all the characters except one, which was a Minotaur cleric, made it over to the campaign, which was played by Patch. He's like, I need a new character, because his highest stat with racial bonuses was a 12.
Oh,
yikes!
It was.
So the best they rolled was like a 10.
Like, I don't let them. That's why I don't let them roll. It's just so mean.
Yeah.
But they called it
brutal.
It was they were meant to die in a dungeon that I had created for a one shot that was based off a short story Patrick wrote.
Okay.
But we kind of fell in love with the characters, and we're like, well, I kind of want to record this. I'm like, okay, we'll make it into a thing. And eventually, like, I looked over the stats. I'm like, yeah, no, this is not gonna fly. I ended up having to like roll additional d6s to bump the stats. But generally, if I'm making a character, I start with mechanics that I want. I then look at my stats, and then I'll get with the DM to figure out what kind of world they're playing in, what would make sense for the character's backstory. Like I said, I'm a mechanics guy, so I always start with mechanics, but I encourage my players to start with a backstory.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, it's funny you mentioned this, Tyler. We just asked this question on Twitter like a couple days ago. We said,
really?
you know, what do you start with, race, class, backstory, or name?
Yeah, I saw that tweet actually.
Yeah. So class won by a long shot. Like 55% of people chose class, and then 26% backstory, 17% race, and 2 very interesting percent said name, which I really want to know who's like, I'll say Larry.
Yeah.
And Larry's going to be, you know.
That's Patrick was probably in that 2%.
Yeah.
Because he definitely picks a name first.
Yeah.
Really? I don't even know what the name is the hardest part for me
I
to
was going to
come
say,
by.
I'm so bad at naming things. It's out of control.
Yeah, you want me to...
I am atrocious. I rely so heavily on random generators. It's not fair.
Oh no, I still make mine, but
if you ever want to play a game of D&D with me, you need to give me like at least a month heads up, because that's how long it's going to take for me to come up with a character name.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
I'm bad. They're all like slimy and lucky and shiny, and
all
yeah, they're not cleverly named at all. But I definitely start with like who they are, and then I decide like, they're a disaster raccoon, which means they're probably going to be a sorcerer, and this is probably what they did. Like, it's definitely backwards, I think, from what most people do.
Yeah, no, I like that approach. I try to think of like kind of the concept of my character. And like for my latest character, I said I wanted to play like a grouchy, irritable old man, but who has like a soft spot for his family. And then from that, I became like an old gnome, which then became a wizard, which then, so it kind of, I built from that sort of core subject, because I'd never played an older D&D character. All my D&D characters were always like in their 20s. And I wanted to do something different.
When I make a character, it depends, because sometimes it starts with backstory, but other times when it's a class or like a race that doesn't necessarily have actual attributes. When I made an orc before they actually came out with an orc's traits, I started with the race. One that I still want to play at some point is an Asimar Asimar, I don't know how you pronounce it. Everyone pronounces it differently. But he was a Kotil, which is like a snake-like flying entity that's from like the heavens above and things like that when you go into the deeper lore for it. So I wanted to have a character that was banished from their plane, turned Asimar, that originated from a Kotil. So that's when I start with like race, because how do you make a backstory that leads you to start with that?
Yeah, that's true.
That's fair.
I usually start with some idea of who the character is as a person. And then from there we'll go with like name and backstory, and then we'll go to stats. Names are where I struggle a lot too. So every once in a while, like when the inspiration strikes and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally know what this character's name is. But then it's like I have to fill in their backstory, and I'm like, okay, random generator for their brothers' names. And
Yeah.
you know, the character that I'm playing right now in our Wednesday night campaign, she originated actually in a text-based RP channel. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to pull her out so I can kind of flush her out a little more in this campaign. And her name is Evie Hart. And so, of course, I had to run with that, and I gave her parents the same names as Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore's character in The Wedding Singer. So they are Robert and Julia
so
Hart.
That's awesome.
Cute.
That's kind
Julia
of
Gulia?
Yeah.
Julia Gulia.
Yeah. I love how a name, though, sometimes a name can change your character. Like if that's the last thing you pick. So like the character I play on Know Your Role is named Relic. And I had gone through a couple different versions with that in my head. And originally I was going to call him Flux. And he was going to be this very robotic, like I was going to try and do like a robotic voice and kind of like him just be very mechanical. And then eventually when I settled on the idea of him having been found in like an abandoned mine, Relic is what came to mind. This idea of like the people who found him named him that. And he became this
That's
like,
cute.
very like naive and innocent sort of like he's awkward, but he's not robotic. And I decided to drop the voice. So I wasn't going to do like a robotic voice. He just has kind of a strange way of speaking, but yeah, it was all
Kind of like
because
a
of the name.
sheltered kind of personality.
Very
Linda,
sheltered.
you were saying that your character came from like a text-based RP kind of situation.
Yeah.
My very first two characters were actually made in the same boat. When I first got into kind of creative writing and creative character design, I started out in a role play chat for Persona 5 and made two original characters for that. And that's where my first two D&D characters came from. So that's actually extremely interesting. Do you remember where the text-based RPG came from, or text-based RPG came from?
So it wasn't. It was actually just like an RP chat room that was developed. A friend of mine created it, and it's all a homebrew world. So it was really great because I was able to work with the DM to roll in some of the backstory that I had created for her about how she ended up in this world. You know, from the RP channel. Like one of the things that my character has is a massive scar from about the inside of her eye all the way down her cheek. And so we were, you know, he was like, you know, he's like, that's just something that you could give your character flavor with. And I said, yeah, but to me, it's kind of important that how she got it is part of her backstory. You know, and it all came from, you know, like the job that she was doing while she was in that world, so to speak. So so it was kind of a nice way for me to be able to still pay homage to my friends, you know, sort of the brainchild of my friend, and be able to take this character out and now kind of flesh her out completely. So
Yeah.
So
good.
it's kind of a fun thing to do.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah.
No, I was just curious because mine was just an amino chat about Persona. So
Yeah. Nope. This was just a So Remove Disc is a guy in our chat right now. He plays the Wednesday night campaign with Mike and I, and he actually maintains a bunch of stats for us about when we play. So he tracks all the natural ones, all the natural 20s, all like, you know, who rolled the most ones, and that sort of thing. He just posted in chat, fun fact, yesterday night we never rolled a 17.
Oh, thanks.
That just feels so bizarre to know.
Right?
Why do you know this? Yeah.
Very specific.
I don't even know that.
You're still muted, Rolls.
Oh, that's funny.
97 rolls.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
my group
rolling.
is just ridiculous. Like, I, especially like with my NPCs and everything, they do have very obnoxiously rich backstories. My characters may never talk to half of my town NPCs, but I have a whole town full of NPCs that have a whole life history and family lines and everything else that, like, yeah, if they ever do talk to these people, I won't even have to think when it comes to role-playing them. But the odds of them actually talking to these people that I've built out so thoroughly.
That's why I'm a strong believer in just moving those people. Like if I had a really fleshed out bartender and you never went to the bar, well, I guess he's the sheriff now because you went to the sheriff and now that's who they are, and you'll never. But then you're screwed, of course, if they do end up going to the bar. And you're like, well, wait a second.
Well, fuck.
It's
Yeah,
just
I
a
do
twin
have
brother. Just a twin brother, exactly the same. It's a doppelganger.
It's like the
my
chit
note
chat.
cards that I talk about all the time online. People make fun of me because I am the most overly planned, organized DM that's ever existed. These are all NPCs in one town.
Wow.
In one town?
Yes, this is one of my towns. So when my characters go to a place, I'm like, oh yeah, so the stables, which is what this card says, that's these people. Yeah, so like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm extremely organized, and over prepared. But as a result, I don't. I mean, I've gotten better at it, but especially when I first started DMing, I didn't improvise very well at all. So it made me really anxious. If somebody talked to somebody I didn't already know, I would just freak out, and I'd be like, I don't know, they're Bob, and they hate you. I just didn't know what to do. So I had to plan everything out.
I think it was in one of Matt Mercer's earliest DM tip videos, and he talked about like if you really need to make an NPC up really quickly, the two things that you can just use to kind of drive it is what are they motivated by and what are they afraid of. And if you just come up with those two things, and it doesn't have to be, you know, incredibly deep, you can just kind of then use that to sort of drive the conversation and just write that down on like a little note card or type it up.
One of the biggest things
I have a new goal.
Like if a character can be persuaded, seduced, or intimidated, because that's always what my players go to.
Seduced or
so I have to know for sure if they can be seduced, if they can be intimidated, or it's those are the main things for me anymore. That's like,
Can I ask you guys, does that actually happen to you all regularly? I've always heard of like the bard that tries to seduce the dragon or the lich or something. I've never really had one of those players that just tries to like sleep with every one of my NPCs.
So I've
never had that.
I've had a bard who quickly learned that this is not how you play a bard, because I like I said, none of my players knew how to play the games. They were just going off the stigma that all D&D kind of was. So bard is sexual at everything. That's what he was like trying to joke about. But now in our current campaign, his goal is to not sleep with anyone ever.
He's abstinent.
Yeah, I have several characters, any more NPCs that can't be seduced because I would just be in trouble. I definitely have one player, Friday, who my friends in chat are very familiar with, who is the one who asks, like I mentioned, I think when we were offline, if the NPC is hot. That's the only thing they ever want to know is, are they hot? I'm like, God damn it, I'm gonna have to...
because they have fire all over them.
They're literally on fire now, yes. So yeah.
So I have a new aspiration now. I realize my new aspiration is to play in a campaign, in one of Shiny's campaigns, and I swear I will go and talk to every single person in that town.
Yeah, I'll be with you on that.
The story never progresses. You just spend the entire year in the one
Rolls
town.
just
only learn.
It's one of those video game, the conversational video games.
Yeah, text-based.
No combat, just text.
It's a new challenge.
Look, I'd be down with that. That's fine.
Little did you
Role play is the
the
best.
second half of the show. Surprise!
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, I've actually had that character and been
Yep.
that character.
Okay, you've been that guy.
Mainly, it wasn't so much seducing as it was persuading them that I would kill them.
Yeah,
Okay,
I play
that's
some pretty
different.
persuasive characters.
Persuasion, yeah.
I rarely try to seduce things. My characters are usually too spazzy for that when I do actually play, but it's
Yeah.
usually like persuasion, especially in like RPG video games. Dude, any Skyrim or Fallout
Yeah.
game, charisma is going to be way up here.
I want to say one good way to discourage players from trying to seduce everything is every time they fail, physically punishing them in some way, getting slapped, having
Right?
guards chasing
Well-
them out.
Oh, I thought you meant in real life, like slapping your.
I
mean-
certainly hit some of my players. Don't get me wrong.
You can always threaten them
Speedway.
with the threat of certain, bodily organs being at risk of
Certain.
breaking or
Yeah, it's a
in
great
some
way to discourage
way.
a player.
There's
Well, that-
definitely those moments.
Glad to
It
know that
depends on
not
the
all of us have had. But
Yeah, it very much don't condone slapping kids. That's true. My players are all adults. I only hit adults.
we do not condone
Somebody in chat
slapping
said-
kids.
Somebody
until-
said, no, can't slap kids. Yes, no, we do not condone slapping kids.
Yeah,
Make that very
Parsoni,
clear.
he DMs, they DM for like high school and middle school age kids, so it's harder for him.
Yeah.
I DM for a bunch of adults who know me very well and that they will get slapped if they do something stupid. But yeah,
I
that's
have
a
my
whole
friends who act like
there's-
children.
exactly. I mean, that's part of
that's
D&D.
kind of the fun of D&D, though, is being
Yeah.
just a little bit while being an adult and pretending to be, yeah, my character is serious.
I
Yeah,
think a lot of serious characters.
my
I
friend,
get a lot of shit.
my friend that I was talking about earlier, the one before we went live, we were talking about my friend that I met through a Facebook group for Dragon Age fans, and she joined my D&D group shortly after that, actually, and she played a character. We jokingly call her the offensive sorceress for two reasons. One, because she only used offensive spells, and two, because she was exceptionally offensive, and and just like made it her mission to just like make everybody as uncomfortable as possible. And so going back to the question about having characters that want to try to sleep with everybody, she did in fact successfully manage to seduce a drider, so that was a
Cool.
little awkward. And
Mhm.
then another time another
There's
time we got to
eight
town,
legs.
and a succubus had shown up, and we managed to I'm pretty sure my character went through an alignment change after this.
Mhm.
We managed to
Right?
convince one of the guys in our party to take the succubus back to the inn, and we would pay for the room and everything. And yeah, that didn't end so well for me.
Yeah.
I want to say, that's legit evil what you did.
Yep, it was a good time.
Yeah, that takes it a step further than just a classic prank.
yeah.
I'm going to
no,
say,
it was-
although that is also a good way of stopping players from seducing things in the future is have them encounter a succubus.
Yeah.
They will think twice about
Yeah.
that question.
yeah.
I think I had one of the individuals from an establishment poison a player with contact poison with a mug or something. It was early into the game, so I taught him real quick that not everyone is going to just go with it.
Yeah, it is.
That's still one of my favorite, like Rothfuss Perkins moments is when I think he chooses to fail a seduction roll on somebody, and Perkins just punishes the shit out of him. And I was like, yes, thank you.
That sounds very Perkins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Nice.
you're still muted, Rolls. Keeping
It's
an eye
okay,
out.
Rolls. I was.
My dogs keep
Stream
barking in
for
the
like 10
background.
minutes.
It's driving me crazy.
I mean,
I was gonna
you
say
can't
that-
hear it, so you're doing a good job.
Okay, great. That sounds like Rothfuss too, is what I said.
Yeah,
Mm.
very. Patrick Rothfuss bullshit is a term for a reason, and it comes up in my game a lot. We've got some Friday bullshit that's very similar, but yeah, I don't know. It makes stuff like that more fun. But for sure, I've got a player that tries to seduce everything, but they also will move on pretty quickly if I don't let it happen. So
Mhm.
That's helpful.
That's good.
I long for the day when Relic attempts to flirt with someone in our game. It's gonna be truly something to behold.
I just want him
That
to
does sound
flirt with
interesting.
like an inanimate object for some reason. I don't know why. I just feel like him flirting with just
Oh, like him, like
unknowing,
not realizing it. Yeah, that would be
like a mannequin or something.
Yeah.
Mimic.
That's what I envision. A
Yeah, exactly.
That'll learn you.
I mean, the name of our very first episode is Relic is a Fax Machine, so it seems like it would be very on brand.
Yeah, that does sound on brand.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that's funny.
Oh.
So when you guys actually get to play in person, this is a question I like to throw out to everybody. When you guys actually get to play in person and you're rolling legit dice, do your dice have to match?
Yes.
I have
Yes.
dice for every character.
Absolutely.
I have a different set of
yes.
dice, and I absolutely cannot roll dice like that aren't for the right character. I have DMing dice, and then I have dice for each character that I actually play.
Yep.
And it's creepy to roll dice for different characters. I hate it, and I do not let people touch my dice.
I'm in
I
the
have a
same
lot of
boat
dice.
where my characters will have specific dice, but being a DM, I have a box which has all the organized dice that I will ever need
Yeah,
with 12 different sets.
Yep.
I want to say this is half of my collection. The other half is my player dice. Actually, no, the 1/3.
but they're all mixed up in one bag, you heathen.
Yeah, no duh.
I'm with
play
Sh-
with all of my dice.
I have an old.
No.
I used to try keeping them separate, but they took up too much room.
No,
I think
I was gonna.
No.
collectively 22 sets of dice.
What were you saying, Nick?
I was going to respond, to the original question. The whole idea of it's okay if now, so like for my wizard character, Felix, that I play in my other home game, I have a set of dice I got from Level Up at New York Comic Con. They're like my most treasured possession. That I will add in, like when he casts Fireball, I specifically bought 8 red D6 from a local gaming store, just so I can get that feeling. So I'm okay with mixing, but as long as I'm still using like, here's this set and here's my 6 dice, because I don't want to have to make everyone wait for me to roll my
6 times.
But
Yeah,
besides that, that's like the only exception to my rule.
If you don't do this already, so Chessex, they do all of their dice ordering online via Excel spreadsheet. You can order however many dice of whatever color you want, of whatever number. So like I have a custom DM set that has like 8d8 and 3d10 and 4d6 and like all these specific numbers, because they'll let you order any set they have by the number, and it's very cool.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good.
That's
That
actually
is
really
really
good to know.
cool.
I do think I need to get like an official DM set, because right now I just use all different kinds of dice, because I've been gaming since I was 13, and that was a great gift for my parents to get me. Nice, cheap, put in the stocking. He'll be happy. So I have lost and had more dice than I can count.
I was going to say, we were talking before we even went live that you've been playing your whole life, and many of us started when we were older. So of anybody, it makes the most sense for you to have a bunch of mixed up dice.
Oh
yeah, like there was one of my players, he's been playing with my dad, since I was born. So they've been playing 30 plus years, and he has like 30 sets of dice in this like 5-pound bag, and he picks out like his dice for each session. Like it's like a 20-minute process.
Oh.
Okay, buddy.
I have to pick out dice for each session as well when I'm playing a character. I deliberately put together a mismatch set just so that I had a deliberately put together mismatch set. But when I play a character, I normally have a specific set of dice that I use.
Yeah.
See, I did the same thing where I wanted just a number of dice, because as a DM I don't ever play. So to make a deliberately mismatched set, I found on, I think it was eBay or Amazon, a set of 7 different colored dice. Like every single, like it's just 7 sets, each with a different color. So that way I would have all the dice I would need. But when I got it, the reason why I have so many dice and why I have 14 sets of dice is because when they sent it to me, they sent me 2 yellow D20s. I'm like, hey, just so you know, you sent me this. If you wanted to send like the whatever D4 they were forgetting, they sent me an entire another 7 set sets.
Nice.
Oh.
For no, and I'm like, it's just 1d20. I don't care. I just, why do I have 14 sets now?
A
Yeah.
bunch of dice enablers.
Yeah, basically.
They're like,
I started
they'll
making
need it.
dice about a year ago, and it's a whole different obsession. If anybody
awesome.
wants to know about making dice, I have a whole tutorial and everything. But yeah, once you realize like balancing and shit is hard, but you can also make whatever fucking dice you want, and it's also very cool.
It is
wanna get into it.
incredible the stuff that people, a lot of the resin folks that put like flower petals, or like I've seen like little
Yeah.
like
My favorites were
skulls.
sprinkles. I have dice that are just made of sprinkles, and they make me very happy.
We
but
could probably
they're
do an
so
entire
poorly
hour on
balanced.
dice.
Yeah, for sure.
Incredible.
That's super fun.
I'm gonna
All
say
right, well,
right now
Go ahead.
I was gonna say my current dice obsession is some stone dice that my parents got me for my birthday.
Awesome.
They're
Nice.
gorgeous.
That's very cool.
Gemstone dice are rad.
I have a I only have one because the only way that you could get it was just as a D6. But I took my daughter to Washington D.C. a couple years ago, and we were at one of the Smithsonian museums, and they had just a gemstone 6-sided die, and so I was like, yes, please, I will take one of these for me, and one of these for this friend, and one for this friend, and one, because they weren't terribly expensive.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you know, it was just a really cool one. So now it sits. I have a china cabinet that does not hold china. It holds like all of my dragons and like random D&D paraphernalia and minis and stuff like that. So it hangs out in there. I'm too scared to roll it. I'm afraid I'll break it. So
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
special tray for him.
Yeah. On the topic of big objects that you never use, how many DMs here use props just for like special occasion things?
Oh, absolutely. I've got so many things like scrolls. I have a wax seal.
That's awesome.
I've used coins before. I once sculpted a holy symbol out of clay for one of my characters.
Wow.
And I love doing props. That's actually why switching to Roll20 during all this Corona stuff has been so hard for me, because I'm like, but I want to give them
You know,
props.
physical things. Yeah,
Me
no,
too.
it's so fun. The only thing that I actually really have is a skull cup that we use for death saving throws. Whenever
Nice.
you have to make a death saving throw, you put it in the cup and you shake it up.
That's very cool.
neat.
Yeah, I'm a very physical DM. I have lots of
Your
props.
Your notes
Yeah,
are
in my
good.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I DM in person, I have gold coins, I have little shiny gems. One time I had somebody travel over here and I made them roll dice in a box of glitter. So every time they rolled dice, they got glitter on themselves because it's my brand.
Yeah.
That sounds like a special type of hell. I could not
have
deal with
a-
that kind of glitter.
Shiny.
We have a walking stick in my house, just like a hiking stick, and I've used that before to play like RP as like an old withered crone, like walking around. Like I'm very extra as a DM. Anyone who's ever played my games, like if you walked in, you would just kind of have like one of those like Abe Simpson moments, just like turn around and walk right back out.
I don't know what you're talking about. I sit down
I
around
love
the
it.
What
table,
level I
feel
want
like
to
was
get
at
to.
home.
Right.
Same.
All right.
I
Well, think
haven't
we're
done a lot
gonna-
of props, but costumes is different. I like
Oh.
costumes.
Yeah, costumes are fun.
That's a
I
dream.
do want to give us a quick chance to take a break. It is just after 9 o'clock Eastern. So why don't we take a quick 5-minute break, roughly? Get up, stretch your legs, grab a drink, let the dog out, whatever you need to do,
Perfect.
and
sitting on a
and we
stool.
will
Sounds good.
get started in just a few.
Okay.
Ex-
Right,
Drink.
we are
Much.
back. So welcome back from break, everybody. And thanks to those of you who stuck around to hang out for the second half of our conversation. We were chatting about green screens and sparkling water and all kinds of fun stuff during the break. Hope your break was as entertaining as ours was. So we've got another hour. So again, everybody in chat, if you have any questions for me or any of the guests, feel free to drop those in chat and we will answer them as soon as we can.
My phone has died, so I will be off of it.
Yeah. And so we're just gonna dive right back in. One of the questions that we always get asked, and I don't know how many of you have played other tabletop systems other than, I know most of you are doing D&D right now, but one of the questions people are always curious about when they watch the show is, what is your least favorite tabletop system and why?
Monopoly.
Agreed.
That-
I second that.
That man.
I enjoy Monopoly.
Arrest that man.
I enjoy the Fortune Street version, which is like the Wii, which is way more entertaining.
Someone in chat said Monopoly is not a game.
It's a great way of ruining friendship. That's
Right?
for certain.
Yeah, I actually can't say. I mean, it's a cop-out answer. I don't know enough about enough other systems to say there's one that is my least favorite. I mean, I think there's so many. Like, I've read about a lot of the one-shots. Like Shiny was talking about Honey Heist, and a lot of other things like that. That, I mean, I'm sure there are bad systems out there, but I think like anything that you can go out there to try and like, as long as you can sit down and have fun, I'd probably like it.
Yeah. I haven't played.
My least favorite system is one I have not played, and I refuse to play it on principle. It's called Fatal.
Fatal.
Not Fate.
I have
Fatal.
heard of it.
Okay.
Fatal. Was written by a scumbucket. There's no other way to put it. They were atrocious. It is a game of utter racism, sexism, misogyny. It is the worst thing ever, and we found a review on it online tearing it apart in very satirical and comic things. So I refuse to ever try it. So I will declare it as my least favorite because there's no argument you can make that would ever get me to play it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be safe to say that that's now mine. Well,
it's already
Monopoly is now my second least favorite.
Monopoly is not.
Sorry to kind of tank that real quick.
Okay, well, now we know the answer for everybody.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've never heard of that.
You know, there's some really
I'm
great
sorry
systems
I ruined
out
your
there.
night by telling you about it. I really do apologize. I should have just kept my mouth shut and stuck with Monopoly.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we're good.
yeah.
I think we're good. I'm in a campaign right now. It's a play-by-post where we're using Tiny D6. Anybody familiar with Tiny
I've
D6?
heard of it, but I've never used
They've
it.
got some really great
familiar with
systems
that.
out there. They've got Tiny Dungeon, Tiny Wastelands, whole bunch of stuff. But it's really rules light, and that's the whole point of that system. Now, I'm kind of a rules guy. So although I'm having fun in the campaign, it's not something that I would ever want to DM. So it's
I get it.
as a player, it's okay, but
Well, yeah,
always going back to D&D for me as a DM.
There's almost a masochistic thing for some people with like really rules heavy games where like going into it, you're going to spend half the time at the table arguing about whether you can do this or do that or you know, and for some people that's part of the game. I know for me, you know, I find myself doing it, but I don't. It's not usually fun for anyone other than the two people that are having it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would probably say like, I mean, even just 3-5, even though that's what I grew up on playing D&D. The amount of calculations that go into whether you're doing a high jump versus a long jump, and what you know, like, that's why 5e is to me a little bit more my style because it is a little bit more rules light and.
Yeah, going back to 2E.
It's not quite as intensive.
2E had so much ambiguity in wording of spells and other
Those
things.
little things, all of your different.
Thaco
will always hold a place in my heart. Everyone hates it, but it is perfect. It's not hard.
It's a very dark place in his heart, but it is a place.
It is a place that exists, regardless.
I played that for 14 something years, so
it was personally
parents to guide you through that. You know, you had mentors. A lot of us didn't. We just looked at it. And were like, no.
I'm a little Bobby in comparison.
I'm also really good at basic math like that. So like Thaco didn't confuse me at all.
Oh, that's the best.
Thaco made the most sense. Like, yes, it sucked. But it didn't confuse me.
No, it was very confusing to me. And when I first played Baldur's Gate, like I don't know, it was 11 or 12, and you get like a -1 plate armor, and someone, oh yeah, that's really good. That's really good that you have this negative. Like
negative AC confused so many people.
Yeah,
I love it.
Insane. That's part of the reason I like 5e so much. And my players know, like, because we run a live game, they know not to argue with me for too long. But there are very many times when I just ask them, like, well, what do you think your character would be relying on for this role or whatever. We don't argue about rules as much because our game is very role play based and it's just shenanigans based. But we have a hard and strict rule that if I say something works the way it works, that's the way it works. We're not going to argue about it.
Yeah,
it's the only rule that really matters, right?
There's that classic, you ask your player to roll athletics and they're like, couldn't it be acrobatics though? I mean, could I flip over the river instead
If you can Patrick Rothfuss me through the conversation, then sure.
Right.
I am just as bad as Chris Perkins. But no, if you don't
Good
have
old Pat
for it, then you're going to do what I say.
My favorite example of that recently was on, and there's no spoilers here, but there was a recent episode of Critical Role where they were like trying to track their way through the woods, and one of the characters was like, "Can I use intimidation?" And Matt Mercer was like, "Yeah, go ahead." You can certainly and like,
what's that kind of intimidation to accomplish? What? I'm gonna scare the fool. Tell me.
Yeah, spoilers, total spoilers.
If it
wonderful moment
works, right? I mean, maybe they're sentient trees and they just form a nice path for you because they're scared. I mean,
hey,
you don't know.
Shout it out.
Hey, if you get a natural 20, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if my players roll well enough, our Team Umlau game gets out of control. There's some ridiculous things that happen, but like Parsoni says, it's the rule of cool. If something is sufficiently cool, I will find a way to make the mechanics support it 99.9% of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have like a system where I think unless it's systematically and physically impossible,
exactly.
Go ahead. If you roll high enough, absolutely. Like if you're trying to leap across 30 feet of like from rooftop to rooftop, I've already done this analogy several times. 30 feet is not physically possible without outer force, without something to drive you that 30 feet.
Yeah.
It's not going to make that impossible. It's not going to suddenly make that possible.
This was a really interesting thread or discussion that was going on like the TTRPG Twitter the other day is, do you count natural 20s for skill checks? Because by rules as written, a natural 20 and a natural 1 only applies to attacks. But there were all these people that were like, yeah, but so much of D&D takes place in, or, other D20 games, not in combat, that to take that away can feel, a little bit disheartening for players.
It's still it's a critical success. In my game, it counts. And critical failures count too. Like, you failed. You might have a +5, but you failed. So we're going to take that into consideration. But
I think the coolest rule like modification of that I saw was someone said the way they treat it is a natural 20 is +5 to whatever the skill was going to be on top of theirs, and a natural 1 is a -5. And so it made it that
tracks.
There was still that possibility if you were really, really good at something, you could maybe do something that was really difficult. But yeah, you can't, I'd say you can't punch through like a wall, but in Know Your Role, that absolutely happens. Like one of our characters punches a hole, like a wall.
It depends, and it very much goes both ways in my game. Like, you could critically succeed in a way that's going to be absolutely out of control and ridiculous, but a couple sessions from now, you may also critically fail in such a way that makes my life super entertaining. So it definitely goes both ways. And same is true with the way we let our players or our viewers affect the game. With our brownie points, a wild magic surge might be really beneficial for the players, but it might also be really beneficial for me. So
is one of my favorite aspects in all of 5th edition is the wild magic sorcerer. I love when my home game. Yeah, my home game, one of my characters is wild magic sorcerer, and every time I'm like, yes, give me, this is going to be good. Like, it's led to some of our best story moments.
Yeah, wild magic, I have some custom tables because I feel like 5e could have done better with wild magic, but there are some amazing custom tables out there for stupid shit you can have happen, or even just the idea of wild magic in general. It doesn't have to be scripted. Maybe something stupid happens in your game because you have a wild magic sorcerer, and that just tickles me to no end.
There's a
I remember wild magic before it became a crazy table, and it used to just be whatever you did in this thing, the effect was increased by a percentile roll. So like if you cast fireball and you rolled 100, it was 100 times the volume.
Crazy.
That's how wild magic worked. It wasn't like a random table. It's just you have no clue how effective or how ineffective your spell is going to be. So it went to times where like we would have, and this was when spells scaled, unlike with the spell slots. So like we had a 14th level mage cast a fireball, didn't know it was wild magic, and it basically became like a mile radius weapon.
Killed everyone. Yeah, killed everything.
The
like,
party had to pull a wish to teleport themselves away from the explosion.
Yeah,
they could
like-
survive.
Mushroom cloud.
It's a legitimate
Yeah.
concern. Playing a wild magic sorcerer, like at any given time, you could kill your whole party.
And that's
depending on the level, but yeah.
Yeah, depending on your level and how your DM plays it. But yeah, Shiny, who I am named after, my first 5e character was a wild magic sorcerer, and that is very much my brand. So yeah, I just love it.
Yeah.
See, any fireball cast on you and as the center is always inopportune, even if it's beneficial.
It's still gonna suck. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing with the wild magic table is it's like something shitty happens or something good happens. You get covered in feathers or you kill your whole party.
Yeah.
And that's why I like the custom tables, is because our game benefits from the shenanigans. We've had whole sessions that have been just dominated by wild magic surges,
Yeah.
but it didn't kill the whole party or turn anybody a different race or anything. It just adds some weirdness, and you can use it for whatever you want.
Yeah. In the Great Gods War campaign that we have since the beginning, I've introduced that whenever magic is cast by druidic natured spells, they have a chance of wild magic surges, which has slowly developed into but then plot related situations. So it's been slowly decreasing in odds. But as a result of that, we've come up with some very interesting situations where the bard failed persuading the guards to let the prisoners go or whatever, and decides to thunderclap them to try to give some time for the group to leave, and then starts floating 20 feet in the air. Just because of wild magic just happened to cause levitate and cause them to uncontrollably lift 20 feet into the air.
So fun.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's so funny.
So we got a question in chat. I'm going to change gears for a second. Sorry. We got a question from chat. Jim the Dim wants to know, what's the one character in any campaign that you just couldn't wait for them to die?
Rogues.
Wait, that we
Hey.
Just rogues in general.
Depend. Okay, let me go into.
Come on, man.
Let's hear it.
Like, that's harsh,
But
man.
I have
Okay,
a
let's hear it.
deep-seated hatred for specifically assassin rogues.
Hey, come
Specifically
on,
assassin
man.
rogues. Because this is just fully opinionative, because it's not the type of play style I am, and as a DM, I just find it boring. Because you do three things: you hide, you stab, and you impose your first attack at
That's
any
true.
group spell. That's your three things that you do, and then when you don't have one of those, you just stab. Unless you multi-class into something extremely interesting character development, like for the longest time, I did not enjoy Vax from Critical Role for a longest
Yeah.
time, because that was actually probably what started my hatred for Assassin Rogue.
I
was
gonna
seeing
say,
that
when you
play
started-
style. So like that's why it's personally, if I see an Assassin Rogue, I just like, this is not an interesting character. It's not something fun to play from my perspective. Because I'm a control player. I'm like somebody that likes to control the field. So a lot of spellcasters that use non-explosive magic, so like clerics and stuff like that. It's just my play style. I just don't enjoy specifically Assassin Rogues. I like the other rogues, just not that one.
Rogues can be pretty limited. You have to be good at the one thing you're good at. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's rough.
Unfortunately, the Assassin Rogue, all of its higher tier powers, except for 17th, its capstone, are all very intricate social things your DM has to
Yeah.
be willing to let you do.
Yeah.
Like, they have to be willing to sit down with you and create a fictional identity in this one
Backstory,
specific
yeah.
town.
Yes.
So they have to create like 9 different backstories for this one character. And while I might be willing to do it occasionally, if that was the only thing you ever played, I know after like the 4th story, I'm like, okay, I don't care anymore. Like I'm
Yeah, it does require more work as a DM, like
Yeah.
to make their stories interesting. Otherwise, you do get sort of pigeonholed into, oh, do you need to pick a lock? Like,
I think
Yeah.
the trick with a rogue is finding a way to make it so they can play like be friendly with the party, because so much of being a rogue is sneaking ahead, scouting things out, going in disguise, and you very often then it's like the DM turns away from the other 4 or 5 players and goes, okay, rogue, what are you going to do? And I even suffer from that with my wizard when I use my Find Familiar spell. When I send him up ahead scouting, I'm very mindful as I look around at the other players, like, how much fun is this going to be to listen to me describing my character, doing that one thing that really kind of cuts the rest of the party out. So I think if you can talk with your player, in advance and just say, let's try to find a way to make it so if you are going to go off on one of your little gallivants to like sneak ahead, we're going to flash back a little bit and we're going to see what's the rest of the party doing and what are you guys do? I think that can be a trick too.
Right. It can be affected by like any kind of class. It's just I always feel as though the rogue has limited potential to always do specific things and then just survivability. Because half of their abilities are just like, I'm going to take half damage. I'm going to take no damage.
Yeah.
I will say I love rogues, for the record, by the way. I absolutely love rogues. But yes, I totally get where you're coming from.
See, I like rogues.
To Personi's point, like it also depends on how well you RP. Like if you're just
That's
sneaky,
exactly it.
but you're not good at role playing, then
I do think evasion as a mechanic though is just broken and it needs to be fixed. It should be like once per turn, or it should cost you a reaction. Just the fact that it's flat, it's too good. But the one character I desperately wanted to kill was a bear totem barbarian named Thrax in my Saturday campaign.
Did he have the bear chosen totem?
Yeah. So half damage to everything except psychic.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Always raging, always reckless.
So it was just one of those things is that we were playing Princes of the Apocalypse before we switched over to something else, and I'd have to like triple the encounter difficulty because we had a life domain cleric, and the barbarian would just sit in the door and take half damage to a quarter damage from everything, and just have a life domain cleric go, here's 30 points back. I have to do 60 more. So like there was just no way of actually posing a combat threat to the party.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, it's interesting hearing people talk because I think a lot of this comes down to sometimes as a DM, it's hard not to feel adversarial, even if you aren't intending to, where you feel like your goal is to make your players have fun. And are they really having fun if there's no challenge? And so,
exactly.
My response was going to be, it's actually not combat related. It was a friend of mine who played a warlock that had Mask of Many Faces as one of his packed evocations. So he could make himself look like anyone. He took the actor feat, so he could sound like anyone as long as he heard them speak for a minute. He had advantage on all deception checks. He basically could destroy any RP or social challenge I put before them because he could be like, I'm going to disguise myself as the king or as, this captain of the watch or the villain. And it was such a well-made, airtight character that I couldn't ever find my way into it. And so he was the one. Sorry, Jake, I love you, but he's the guy that I wanted desperately to die.
There's ways to get around that with like true sight and stuff.
Yeah.
Mind thought crap.
Well, yeah, and when someone finds out you've been impersonating the sovereign, that the kind of the punishment that comes from doing things too.
Mm-hmm.
Specific passwords and whatnot can also be a great way of stumping that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you are right, that kind of fun thing. Now, my players were loving the fact that the bear totem was just able to absorb everything, but I couldn't tell a story because the threat that was supposed to be this apocalyptic world-ending thing that was supposed to have them on their toes was like, we'll just throw the barbarian at it. This is not a big deal. Intimidation, the Prince of the Apocalypse are going to come take over the world. It's like, okay, we'll just put the barbarian in front of them. Yeah. That's problem solved. Wash your hands. Move on.
This is I don't know if this works for everyone, but one way I look at when you have a character that's really overpowered, word of that character will spread, and someone somewhere in the realm or in the city or something is gonna want to go and show that character up. And I think one of my favorite things to do is maybe there's a bigger, badder barbarian out there that's heard about you and your, crazy strong feats of wonder, and they're going to show up in your game one day and say hey, I heard you're a tough guy, let's go. And give that character, because that, to me, that character is telling me that player's this is what I love to do. So rather than take it away from them, it's well, here's someone who does what you do as well, so give them a taste of their own medicine.
We do that in my evil game, or my previous evil game. Just the reputation system, the infamy system, and it works for not necessarily evil games, but to your point, if you're a well-known hero, there may be well-known villains who are after you, or if you have built some sort of reputation, there may be people that are trying to bring that down. So infamy can be a very helpful thing.
Also, Saint, the last
Absolutely.
thing I'll say, that barbarian is going to be big trouble for his party when the big bad evil mind controls them.
Yeah.
Turns that around on the party. I mean, because they're going to have a low wisdom save. I mean,
well, that was the thing. Like, he was one of the few rolled level characters, and he was actually pretty good. Like, he was pretty solid. I did eventually manage to drag them down through like environmental and spell based effects. So he died like 7-8 months ago, and the character that they're playing now is an Eric Hakra, and it fits so much better. We shifted worlds. It's been a much more enjoyable campaign since we kind of left that old story behind. There was some emotional baggage there because the player of Thorax, her husband actually died suddenly. So like there was some of that like emotional baggage in the campaign, so we just kind of cut it and moved on, and everyone's been a lot happier.
Shiny, Roll, did either of you two have anybody that you just want to kill off in your campaign? Should any of your players know right about?
I think the key is anytime that I recognize that I'm feeling animosity toward a character, it's because I'm not doing something right. It's because I'm not taking advantage of that opportunity to help everybody else enjoy the game, or like Nick said, to go and look at, okay, who is this character? Who would know about them? What different situations do I need to put them into in order to make this feel like a game again, instead of just a stabby battle, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Assassin rogues don't go around and just stab everything if that character knows how to role play deeply with character, right? You can get.
Exactly.
I'm a big rogue proponent, right? That's what I love, but I also love deep character. So for me, when I create a rogue, it's not a murder hobo. My rogues aren't stabby. They have really deep issues, and they're trying to work through things. That's what I love about it. I love the sneaky aspect, but there's that.
I would like to preface, I have never actually had an assassin rogue player. I've only ever seen and come up with, based off my players, what they would do if they were an assassin rogue, and that was exactly what they would do as an assassin rogue, is murder hobo.
There's lots of those, right? They're designed that way. It makes it really hard not to play them that way. Right?
I think one thing that this gets at too is this idea of having that session zero conversation with your party and say, like, what kind of game are we going to be running? And if you have a bunch of min maxers that want to get that like crazy numbers, and they're like, let's make it nuts. But if you have that one person and then everyone else in the party doesn't feel that way, like maybe talk to that person and see, like, because then you end up with that person that is, again, all they do and all they care about is combat, and so that's their solution to everything. Well, what if we stab the guy?
Yeah, I've had that problem multiple times. Session zero is insanely important.
Yes.
If you haven't already learned this lesson, if you're going to DM, making sure that the people that are at your table actually want to be there and want to play the game that you're about to run is so important. Otherwise, it's just constantly combative and it's not fun for anybody.
Yep.
One person ends up holding everybody else's fun hostage.
Yeah.
As far as characters who we want to kill, my players, I love my players, and I'm definitely not a punishing DM. I'm very much a rewarding DM as far as like Satine and Rudy's categories are concerned. But my own players, my own characters, I would not be upset if Clover died. For my friends in the chat, Clover is my Bee Stinger character. She's Rosie Harpel's daughter. She's Rosie Bee Stinger's daughter. She's also a Harpel, for those who are familiar with that world. Yeah. She's a fucking mess. But my main character is Shiny, and she is this character's mom. So having one of my characters die actually affects another one of my characters. So yeah, it's almost more about Shiny than it is about Clover necessarily, but she's almost the only character that I've wanted to, like, if she died, it would change this other character's story, and that would be really interesting for me.
Yeah, I've never thought to play a character that is related to another character of mine.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Shiny was my first character, so I didn't play D&D until I was in my 20s. As a teenager, all my friends were dudes, and I've always been a nerd, but I have such bad ADHD, I cannot sit still for that long. So it wasn't until I was older that I could play. So Shiny was very much my first character, and she was that wild magic sorcerer. So yeah, she might be Bert's auntie, Parsoni. She is a wild magic offspring of Rosie Bee Stinger and Shiny Harpel. So yeah, she's a handful, but Shiny is my main original character. So yeah, if Clover died, it would just fuck up Shiny's story. So that would be interesting for me.
It would
But I don't
affect
play
them,
as
yeah.
much as I DM, so
Yeah, exactly. I'm in the same boat. I have 2 NPCs, which were the original characters from the roleplay amino chat from before. One is 65-ish in years old, while the other is his granddaughter, who's only 13. So while one completely is, there's that age gap and completely
Yeah.
devoid of difference. They, if one were to be gone, the other would have catastrophic meltdown, basically. So I
Yeah.
can get where you're going with that, with the kind of ascertaining what would happen with one's death in comparison to the other.
yeah. They all get interconnected. And, you know, I'm
Mhm.
such a big planner and backstory nerd that, yeah, every one of my characters has a whole life worth of backstories that might come into play or maybe not. Like, I understand as a DM, like, I certainly don't expect any of my dungeon masters to do everything with my backstory or anything even, but it's there if they decide to.
Yeah.
It's a weapon.
Good for you for having it.
I gave my DM, so for Know Your Role, our DM Joe, this was his first time ever DMing other than a one shot we did at my dining room table here that he just to kind of get a feel for it. I gave him what I like to consider a gift of I decided that my character Relic has no memory, no backstory of what he was before he was found 2 years prior to the campaign. So he's a fully functioning adult. I mean, he can walk and talk and act like a a functioning adult only because he's a warforged. But I told Joe, I said, whatever you want to have done with what he was before he was found by these dwarves and activated, that's on you. And he has told my wife, apparently, I don't know about it, but she was like, oh yeah, he's like intricately weaved it into the backstory, which I love. But it was going back to Shiny's point, I'm a backstory guy. That's like my favorite part of character building. So to do that was like, oh, it was so hard for me. But I was like, Joe, I'm going to give this to you. Do whatever you want with it. Because, you know, how often you get a character that can be hundreds or thousands of years old and have had any sort of past.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah. So we're only 18 episodes in, so I still don't know anything about Relic's true past. But
oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Something with a name
one
like
game
Relic.
like that.
Yeah.
Relic is such a good name. You explained that name earlier, and it was so perfect. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm obsessed with him. I mean, you guys can tell. Like, I mention him at any opportunity that I can. Yeah, he's been my favorite character I've ever played, which is really surprising to me. But it's been, I love him.
Nah, yeah, it's feeling that bond between you, like a character you make and yourself is just so much fun. Yeah. Being not a player, I end up just making you invested in. Like, I think I have a list of 11 or 12 characters that I've fully fleshed out just because it's just fun to make a character like that.
Yeah, I've made a lot of characters. I've started on backstories and like, I'm never gonna have a chance to play this. I should just stop before I get attached.
No. If you guys have characters you want to play, hit me up because I'm always looking for guest stars.
I was going to say, Shiny, after I saw your note cards, I'm certainly going to be.
I will talk to every single NPC. I promise. I swear it.
I'll be like the shoulder on characters. Like pass, just like, hey, let's go talk to them. Let's go over there.
Yeah, we just need to pop in as like the angel and the devil. Don't seduce, totally seduce, don't seduce.
Don't seduce.
It would just be two devils. What are you talking about? Be like, seduce, intimidate, seduce, intimidate.
Use the bits. Yeah, use the bits. Bits will persuade.
I should probably add like seduce to my bits or something because. Right now, I only let people use bits to affect like alts, their special abilities. Yeah. But we have our channel points.
Some weird territory there, so that's cool though. It's a neat idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our channel points that they can use to affect the game, and I mean, I just watch my chat all the time. So the stupid shit they say, I swear our last episode, we went on for like 15 minutes describing an NPC because the chat kept adding stupid things. And then I'd have to be like, yeah, no, he definitely has 15 parrots on his arms. Yeah, that's obviously a thing that's happening now.
Because that's not going to make his shoulder tired or anything.
Oh my gosh.
Now it's on my note cards. So yeah, I mean...
It's funny too how like with NPCs, especially when you stream a game, how attached your community gets to NPCs. some of the
Oh.
NPCs.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes, Luna, yes.
We have one in our Sunday night game that, so part of one of the things that we can do is our community in our Discord, we actually have a channel where our community can create NPCs that we will then put in the game. The DM will put in the
That's
game,
fun.
which is a lot of fun. And so somebody
Yeah.
created a character who was this little goblin named Squee. And yeah, and the community just latched onto him like within 5 seconds of him hitting the screen. And now he's just this recurring character, just constantly, you know, like every so many episodes. And a few weeks ago, he almost got killed off, and people in chat were ready to riot.
I believe it.
So upset.
Squee better not die, otherwise the show is gonna end.
It was awful. And so then, of course, the next week we discover, hooray, Squee is not dead.
Yeah.
Chat's going nuts, like, Squeezus Christ, rise from the dead. You know?
That's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
so good.
Yeah.
that's the one good thing. Like all of the work that goes into streaming and all of the cost and everything is just like, for me, worth it just for that. Like that
Yeah.
alone, that buy-in and other dumb random people being excited about the stupid shit you say is just like, there's no monetary value you can put on that.
It's
Yeah.
so
No,
funny,
there's
and
not.
it's never the characters you expect. Like on our show, the guy who's driving the wagon or steering the wagon that we all first meet on is just like a redneck guy named Cletus, who asks us to give him 5 stars when we get to the town, and none of us know what these
best.
are or where to put them. He's like, I don't know what it means, but I really want them.
Somebody give me 5 stars though, for sure.
Yeah, and we actually have a 5 stars emote in our Discord now, specifically because Cletus, and he's the name of our Discord bot because everyone loves Cletus, and
That's
he's just
awesome.
this like guy that our character or our DM Joe made up because he needed someone to get us to town, and that's what people resonated with.
Yeah,
That's
it's
perfect.
shocking. The best example I have of that since would be my Saturday group. They came from another world, so they had to change all their money, and I had a bank, and the banker's name was Susan. And instantly, they were like, "We're going to torture Susan." So they start asking her all these weird questions, things that there's no way she would know. So therefore, there's no way I know.
Yeah, I've had that problem where like players think NPCs are being combative. They just don't know the answers to the stupid questions you're asking. You guys, come on.
That's
I
why
don't-
I love the insight when they're like, "Can I roll to see if they're lying?" I'm like, I hope you roll really high so I can tell you, because like they'll roll a
They're
3,
lying.
and
Yeah.
you're like, "No, they're telling the truth," and they're like, "No, guys, they're lying. I only got a 3 on my insight." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Somebody else roll.
yeah."
See,
Insight
what I like
checks.
to do for that is
Ah,
it's the same thing with like investigation checks. If somebody's like, I'm like, okay, here's the thing. You rolled a 2 on investigation. Everything's a trap. That lamp that's sitting on that table, that's trapped. You don't know what that could be. Everything in this room is trapped. And now that player is freaked out, just role playing because they know they rolled like crap. But then
Yeah.
secretly, there is an actual trap in that room.
Yeah.
Sure. They just think that everything's a trap.
Right.
yeah.
And,
a good idea.
To Shiny's point, I've never streamed a game that I've DM'd. I mean, obviously, I play on Know Your Role, but my favorite thing is when I find an NPC that my party just loves. Like in my Waterdeep game, it's a beggar named Crazy Old Reggie who sells rats,
Oh,
and
that's
he
awesome.
shows up. He
You've
basically
got crazy names.
yeah, I mean, he was just, and so he'll like pop up out of the
Cletus.
sewer in like the most absurd like combat situation and be like, "Come on in," and everyone will like, they're like, "Yes, Cletus is here," or Reggie's here, and they'll all run. And I
Oh.
love that. Yeah,
Those eccentric
Yeah.
NPCs can be the best.
yeah. Eccentric-
Nobody does insight checks. It fucking destroys me. Dude, people lie. They
Yeah.
don't know the truth. They don't know they're lying. They're like, insight checks. Just see if they're telling the truth just once. Like,
Sometimes
it would
you can
make
use
my life so
passive
much easier.
insight. Like you can take
That's
your
true.
character that's got like 16 and be like, "You notice a little something seems off about that."
Like a
I've
twinge.
definitely had to do
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah.
get the sense
same.
that this person's fucking full of shit.
I've done
Uh,
that.
Because you can have the opposite happen. In my
Yeah.
experience, where they question everyone, like the innkeeper's like, "It's 5 copper a room," and they're like, "Insight check."
Is it
Is
really
really?
5
That's
copper?
me.
That's really
As a player.
Yeah.
No, as a DM, yeah, my players are sweet dumb babies, and like not the people, but their
Don't say that about
characters.
Patrick.
Oh my god, I would die. I have played a game with Patrick Rothfuss, and it almost killed me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just like Patrick willfully ignores the obvious signs. My players are just too sweet, and they just want the best for everybody, and they just assume the best about everybody. And I ran an evil game for way too long for that to work out for their benefit. So
I feel like we've taken control away from.
we are the bosses.
We're off.
But I mean, it's really feast or famine when it comes to like players interacting with NPCs. They either insight check them endlessly, and it's like, no, they're telling the truth, and they believe that you're lying to them. Or
The DM.
yeah, no, they're telling the truth, and you're sitting there going like, no, I need you to think that they're lying. This is the one time it's okay for them to be lying. Just it's either or. I've never had a nice in between. It's either I'm telling the truth. I'm sitting there going like, no, he's lying, or it's no, he's telling the truth. I swear he's telling the truth. I want to move on. Like,
just move on. Stop asking them fucking questions.
Oh my god!
It's a rock.
Yeah, it's
just a rock.
Don't over-explain anything that you don't want your characters to invest in. Like
we had a really great tangent like that after we had an encounter with a Mogogol, which is a frog person. And while we were at the next tavern, Gorlax decided to spend like 10 minutes looking around the room because he saw a green coaster that was a lily pad. Not where he was going with it. He was like, are there coasters in this bar? And our DM Joe was like, yeah, sure. They've got coasters in this bar. And he was like, okay, I wanted to look around. And we just had no idea where he was going with it. And that's what he was looking for.
The lily pad coasters. Clearly, this is a sign that this person.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a
that is hilarious.
Yeah, sorry, Luna, what was the question?
Something about killing people?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like NPCs.
The original question was if there was somebody that you ever wanted to have die in your game before.
And now we got onto frog coasters.
And now we're onto frog coasters.
I have legitimately
this is why
killed
tangents
someone.
are fun.
But it was like I had already removed the person from my game, and I was like, this is session zeros are important, guys. When I first started DMing, I didn't realize how fully important that was, and I just started DMing with some of my friends and realized that one of those people very much was not into the game that I was going to run. You know, they were there to kill things and hack and slash, and I'm very role play based. So they were very unhappy pretty quickly. And I didn't punish them for that. They did end up getting removed from the game in the long run. But it was simply for that fact that, you know, not everybody was there for the same reason. But I did get to kill them in a very satisfying way, which was pretty fun.
Sometimes killing like an NPC is good. Like because our modular campaign was based on when we initially I'd never DM'd before, so I was like, I'm gonna do it all by the book. Understand this, do all this stuff. There's a moment where there's an NPC named Escobert Redbeard or something. I can't remember his last name, but I know his name is Escobert. He's supposed to be alive. Like there's a lot of story derived on this man. In like the first chapter, he just died. There was a moment where I rolled dice. I'm like, okay, well, this NPC is not going to live through this. So that character died, and now he's a monument for this city, to this town. They have a statue of him. The players constantly bring him back up. It's like sometimes a singular NPC, even if they die, will always be relived through the party's own ambition. They've only met Escobert for maybe 30 minutes. In real life, it was like 3 weeks, but
yeah, exactly. But still,
it's like the NPCs are so important. That's why like essentially that the players will always remember is something that's just incredible.
Yeah. I actually have a question for the group, but Luna, I want to defer to you. I don't know if you've already got some queued up, but
just one. So what's the question?
I was just going to ask if you all have, as DMs, have ever killed a character.
I have killed more player characters than I can count.
Really? I've never, except once when a player asked for it because they had to leave the campaign and they wanted to go out in a blaze of glory. But that's the only time. I don't know if I'm too nice or a bit of a wimp when it comes to being a DM, but it's never come around to it.
I'm
an outlier. You shouldn't use me to measure anything. Like my group that I've been playing with since I was 13, they were like the old school Dungeoneers. you had no hit points, so your characters were essentially meat shields until you found a way to keep them alive.
Yeah.
So I was kind of trained never to really get emotionally invested in a character until you had a 60% chance of survival.
Sure.
And I never really
60%.
got to that stage. So a lot of my characters were just, oh, look, you walked, like my first character died in 2 sessions because a rogue blew a trap roll and killed me with poison.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So it was like 3 sessions in, and they're like, "Oh no, we'll bring you back." It's like my dad, who is a DM, is like, "Oh no, as you were going up to the heavens, you saw all the demons in the stone trying to fight their way out." I'm like, my character's soul would not come back. Like he's just no. So like I've taught myself, and I came from a group that were very much like, player deaths are just going to happen. It's a thing.
Yeah.
We'll either
Yeah.
res them or we'll bury them. So like I've had insanely high attrition rates in the few campaigns I've run simply because that was what I grew up in, was these high attrition, Gary, like dungeon crawl. You have your main character and you have your little pack buddy and you use him to set off the traps. That was my first 3 characters.
Yeah, it really depends on your, especially the time frame that you played. Like we've touched on this a couple times. You know, D&D was much more punishing back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And more these days there are different styles of DM, and I'm very much the rewarding, just sort of goofy DM. I'm not a punishing DM. Like I'm not looking for reasons to kill my characters, which is not necessarily a bad thing. There's different DMing styles, and I'm one of those people who just I see a D&D as a storytelling mechanic, but I've also played in games where I knew the DM was just trying to kill me at all times. Like there are just different styles of players, and that comes back to that session 0. But I've never killed a character. I've gotten close a couple of times, but
yeah, definitely close.
unless like a player comes to me and says, I want my character to die for a specific reason, or it's going to serve the story in some way, I have way more fun finding ways to creatively save them than to just kill them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so I've never killed a player character, but what I tell my players is I'm not pulling punches. Like I'm not just, it's just,
Yeah, that's important.
I'm rolling, and whatever the dice roll, I killed an NPC by accident because of this exact reason. And there was a point where I think it also depends on like level, because if you're much lower level, the odds of instant death are a lot higher.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like a few times I've had one of the character or like the enemies stab a downed character, which is going to give them 2 death fails and obviously put the risk at much higher. And apparently, which I very recently did not know about, one of the core rules, one of the basic rules is that whenever you're down and you get back up, your death saves and all that just reset. I always thought that the failed saves always stay until you finish the combat. So that's how I've been playing. So if you can't just keep getting picked up. If you get down and you fail a roll,
that's hardcore.
I've never
apparently,
thought about that.
I always thought that it was the same thing.
That is the one thing I've noticed about 5th, is that it can be very yo-yo-y for characters. Like it's very easy to get knocked down and come back up at full function. And I've been trying to work fair ways into that. Like I've been thinking of trying to, like, every time you go down, you gain a level of exhaustion, just ways to make proactive healing more of a priority.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because right now, like I have a Grave Cleric in my home game in Waterdeep, and he knows the Grave Cleric feature is if you cast a healing spell on someone who is below 0 HP, you don't roll for the heal. You literally heal them to the maximum amount that you can roll on the dice. So he knows, why would I cast heal, cure light wounds on the paladin that's got 8 HP? Well, let me just wait till he goes down, and then I'll be able to get a maximum that kickback. So that's interesting, saying that idea of like coming up with a way. I don't know if I would do full on exhaustion, but I might maybe make it like a Constitution save, and if you fail, then you get exhaustion. Like that's a cool kind of way to make it a little bit of a more hardcore campaign.
Yeah, there was some.
Jump back to your original question. Can we jump back to your original question?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Thanks. So DMing makes me really nervous, and it's because I had several TPKs when I was a young DM.
Oh, no.
Back in the day, we're talking, 2nd edition stuff. I just killed party after party after party because I didn't know what I was doing.
As you do.
So now it's really, really hard for me not to fudge dice. I have to roll damage in front of my party for them to actually know that I'm just rolling damage. I'm not faking rolls, things like that.
I fudge dice
No.
all day. I'm the boss.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do?
I feel bad
Bring
if
it.
I do it.
Like I feel like I make a game that's fun for them to play, but again, because I'm not punishing, I don't just let my dice make my decisions for me. But
Yeah.
I mean, my players aren't in the chat; just a couple of my viewers are. But yeah, I mean, for me, again, it's just a storytelling mechanic. It's not a hack and slash. If something happens and I think that I can tell a better story by fudging the dice, I will definitely do that.
Yeah,
Oh, for
it goes
sure.
back on,
Yeah.
especially for planning out someone's backstory. If that character died, then all that work on that backstory is gone until
Yeah.
back or something. But if they're gone, all of that extra work, that planning that involves them in the main campaign, the character backstory, the direct involvement between other characters, all that is suddenly gone and worthless. Because you could absolutely bring that back up, but the player's not going to care. That character's dead.
Yeah, and there's lots of different things you can do instead of just kill a character. Even if you've watched, some of Perkins's games, sometimes characters are ghosts, or, they could be saved by their party members. If a player doesn't want their character to die, you don't have to kill them willy-nilly. And I have had legit like almost mental breakdowns because someone destroyed one of my characters randomly for no reason, and I was just like devastated by it. Like people really invest in their characters, and you guys, I think as a DM, it's our job to make sure we're on the same page as them, to make sure we're not causing unnecessary emotional damage.
And that's actually one of the things that with the podcast, the discounts, I've not been pulling punches in terms of dice rolls, but I've been very much like the play style has been different for me as a DM because I don't want those TPKs. I don't want to repeat a lot of my second edition mistakes. And these are characters I want not only my players to go with, but our audience to be invested in. And they're just like, oh yeah, they're going to die in like 2 episodes. Like that, you're not going to get invested in that. Now, mind you, if one of my players decides, oh yeah, I'm going to jump off the building into the fire. Sure, that's you. I don't want you to do that. I don't want a new character, but sure, I'll let you.
Remove Disc's point. Also, you can have the opportunity to have people actually sustain permanent injury instead of dying too, which can be super interesting.
So you said, Luna, that you had one question queued.
We do. We have one question from chat, and the question came in from Remove Disc, and he wanted to know what everybody's favorite dump stat is.
Strength.
Wisdom. I love to play like a really smart, like my character Felix. He's really smart but really low wisdom, so he doesn't know when he's being kind of like he thinks of everything rationally, and he's very bad at empathizing, which is, my wife would probably say, a very accurate reflection of me. So I find it easy. Whereas Relic is the opposite. Relic's a cleric, so he has a really high wisdom. But I think low wiz is fun to play with.
It depends on the character, honestly. I've had low strength, low intelligence that really affect, like, obviously huge role-playing standards. The biggest part that probably I don't put dump stats into is charisma, because I just like to talk to people. So having something that directly impacts me from being able to talk to people makes it somewhat difficult.
I'm actually the exact opposite. I don't really have a favorite dump stat, but the one I dump most often, unless I'm playing a charisma-based character, is charisma.
I'm like so the opposite. Like,
I'm with you.
I play casters a lot, but like it's always charisma. Like I could almost video games, role-playing games, it doesn't seem to matter. Like if I can talk my way out of a situation, that seems to be the way I'm gonna go. If I can magic my way out of a situation, that seems to be secondary. But yeah, like strength and dex are almost always my dump stats.
For me, it just depends on, I guess, kind of the flaws that I want for my character. I'm a big role player. I love deep RP. I'm a writer too, so character's huge for me. I go really deep in character. So when I'm creating a character, I usually have an image of what I think that character will be like. So I don't have a favorite necessarily. Mine change all the time, just depending on what it is I'm wanting to create with that character.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Same boat.
I mean, also from the DM standpoint, it's fun to give your party a stat that they could potentially exploit, but not necessarily make it obvious.
Yeah.
Like there's just one time I want to have a villain with a really bad con. so they can make him make Constitution saves and just use that against him.
Yeah,
Not that I've ever had a chance.
I think the other trick too is to find different ways to play those low stats. So like everyone, I think, has this misconception that a low charisma is a person who's like me, no talk. Like that's not charisma. And same with high charisma doesn't mean you're this smooth, suave like Han Solo. Like high charisma can be you're very intimidating or you're just very inspiring. And so I think low charisma.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can be like a kind of a little bit of a twerp, but you're really nice and friendly, but like nobody takes you seriously. And I think you have to remember that there's different. That's just one example, charisma, but other things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you can be charismatic in different ways. You may not be hot or charming, but I've talked to people who are fucking smart as shit, and because of that, are charismatic. Like it just depends, like you said, on the type of character that you want to play. But yeah, like Music Squid said, you can be a really hot person with a shitty personality. That's very true.
I've never heard of that.
What? They're always perfect.
But yeah, I mean, it just depends on the character you want to play. But it does seem like 99.9% of the times the characters I play are high charisma, low strength characters.
Yeah, strength is a big one where it's like not someone that's going to run up and hit something, probably not going to have the highest strength.
Yeah, and I'll say 5th edition really opened up the floodgates for people to use strength as a dump stat because very few DMs I know use encumbrance rules. Not that I'm saying there's anything against it, but if you're not using D&D Beyond to automatically calculate that stuff for you, no one wants to calculate how much 8 javelins weigh.
Yeah,
it's the same thing with like a bag of holding.
Might like that.
Yeah, and even then, like even if you have a negative in strength, like you can still carry an insane amount. It's like 15 pounds per point of strength. So even like an 8 strength character can carry 90 something pounds, which I mean, I have a 100-pound
like
lumbar.
10
and
times
I thought it was 10. Yeah, I thought it was
like,
10.
It's 15.
It's still so high.
15? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is
way more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because someone who's got 20 in strength could carry 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
And run and run
and do all your normal things.
At 20 strength, it's no, it might be 10 because I think I think it maxes out at like 270 or 290 for a non-large.
We just have to remember they're heroes. What I think is funny about heroes, we can carry like boulders, we can throw fireballs, but god damn it if we don't get 8 hours of sleep. That's exactly one thing that makes them shitty.
Did I get my long rest? Did I get my long rest?
Long rest though? Yeah.
Players we used to that. It's hilarious.
Yeah. They're like, did we get that long rest? The
other thing
we used
that
to
kind of like fits with that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, we used to spend hours trying to figure out how much a character could bench press, how much they could squat, how much they could curl. Like, what strength do I have?
That's what I love about Fifth. Like, if I want to throw one of the other characters, I look to my DM and like, can I throw him? He's like, yeah, give me an athletics check. 17, yeah, you throw him. Like, we're not gonna worry about the math.
Yep.
There's like specific things that kind of relate with that. Like I think levitate can only lift 500 pounds. Certain spells. That's when you kind of calculate it. But even then, it's like I'm not gonna weigh the amount that a troll has. Like this one's small, but he's dense. But no, it's like
more often than not, if you roll like crazy and you're like some 110-pound character, but you roll a 20, I'm gonna let you throw that troll or whatever dumb thing. Like
I'm gonna trip him.
More fun
exactly.
That way. Yeah, I'll find a way.
Well, I mean, like just from that, like I'm an ex-martial artist, so like small people throwing big people is totally a thing. It has nothing to do with strength. It's all about
leverage.
I'm huge 5 feet tall. I'll fuck a bro up. Like
I've got a free on.
I want to play a halfling barbarian. That's one of my That's on my to-do list.
Oh, you would have a halfling barbarian.
Had a halfling barbarian
from episode 3. Then
I know about Truck. Yeah, I've gotten past it. I'm on episode 4 right now, I think. But yeah, I know all about Truck.
Nice. Yeah, halfling barbarian, fucking crazy.
Yeah, Shannon from our recent one shot was a half barbarian.
Yeah. I'm always making halfling or gnome whatevers, barbarians especially, and that's because I am like very much 5 feet tall. And to your point, I know jujitsu, so
taekwondo.
Yeah, depending on your stat, I can definitely make an argument for some tiny person doing some ridiculous thing,
Yeah.
not just
Now,
because
if
it's
you're
cool,
calling me
but
Ancient Dragon, I might have to go. I don't think
yeah,
I need to
exactly.
start on that thing.
I want to pin its wings together.
My arms
Make
are
it
not
tap
long
out. Make it
enough
tap out.
to physically tap this dragon, but yeah,
Wear me
it
like
really
a necklace
depends.
isn't happening.
Exactly. It's my arms are so short, but yeah, it's very rule of cool for me in my game. I think my viewers are pretty used to that at this point. Like, if there's something stupid that could happen, I'm probably gonna enable it instead of punish my players, just because it's more interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes down to like number crunching for a lot of weight and things. Like, it's not necessarily fun to sit down for 15 minutes talking about someone's coin weighs down on them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
don't
like
look stuff up
10
like
coin as a single pound.
Unless your players
It's
are
a single coin is an ounce.
that. I know I'm going.
unless your
I
players are
think-
trying to steal 500,000 gold coins.
See, yeah, that's
Dragon-
when it
Yeah.
matters.
and then
that's
I'm
what-
actually am googling it. I'm like, all right, how many wagons would it take? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it
Alright.
matters.
How
Well,
many of
guys,
us as DMs have had that argument?
Yeah.
You can't carry that much gold. You can't
Too
carry it.
much gold.
Can I
I'm
put
sorry,
a
Luna.
price on
Guys,
Go ahead.
I have to end the conversation here. We are out of time. I'm so
So
sorry.
wonderful.
I'm
But
sorry
this
for
has been
taking
so
all
much
of it.
fun. This has been a great conversation, and I'm so glad you guys were all able to come on here. So, what I'd like to do one more time is just go around if you want to give everybody your name and where they can find you on the interwebs, and then we will sign off for the night. So, Shiny, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I am at shinybatgirl on Twitter, and you can find our show at Shiny's on Twitch every Monday night.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Nick, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm Nick with Know Your Role. You can find us on Twitter at Know Your Role, and that's ROLL. We release new episodes every other Friday, and episode 18 should be coming out sometime tomorrow. So hope you guys will check it out.
Excellent. All right, great. Thank you so much. Tyler.
Like I said, my name is Tyler. I'm the DM for this adventure, the video podcast, and the audio podcast gets distributed through Anchor to a ton of different sites. So look us up. You might actually find us. We upload every Sunday and every Friday. We attempt to, at least for Friday, because that's the one-to-one campaign. And if one of us can't make it, obviously we can't record. So, but you can also catch up on Twitter, which is at missrolled, and I upload all the links and keep up to date there.
Great. Thank you. Saint.
I'm the DM for Discount Dungeons. You can find us on Twitter at discount_D&D, or you can look me up at Saint of Demons on Twitter. We post the first and last Wednesday of each month. Our most recent episode I think 7, went up yesterday. It's a lot of character building. It's pretty fun.
Perfect. All right. And Rolls.
All right. Rolls with Advantage everywhere except on Twitter. It's Rolls with Advantage, where it's just a W. It's not spelled out. With is not spelled out on Twitter. It's Rolls W Advantage. But every place else is Rolls with Advantage. You can find me there. I have recently committed to a streaming schedule, so you can check that out if you want. And gosh, I don't know. I guess that's all you got. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you guys all so much for being here. And I am Gamer Mom Luna, better known as Luna. You can find me here on the How I Nerd channel on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, where I play Edabrix, a halfling rogue in our Pathfinder campaign. Monday nights, we have our 1980s Cyberpunk campaign, which is a Savage Worlds TTRPG. That is at 9 p.m. Eastern. And that is Neural Nexus 0. We take Tuesdays off so we can all breathe for a day. And then Wednesday nights, we have Tabletop Tavern 2. That is right here again at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then Thursday nights, every Thursday night, you can find us here with Tales from the Tavern, where we get to bring in really awesome people from all around the TTRPG community. And we hang out and we talk nerdy stuff. So thank you guys again for all coming out. One more thing I want to shout out real quick. So if any of you guys are interested, or anybody in chat is interested, one of our cast members from Tales from the Tavern. I'm sorry, from Tabletop Tavern, is going to be starting up a weekly game night using Tabletop Simulator. So that's going to get streamed once a week. So if anybody's ever interested in participating in that, you can reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with him. We'd love to have any of you guys or anybody from
Sounds
chat,
fun.
let us know. So thanks so much, and I hope everybody has a great night.
Thanks,
Oh,
Luna.
thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
Thanks to
Have a
everyone.
great
Thank you,
night.
Luna.
I forgot to mention our stream team.
Mention the team.
Yeah.
I'm getting
Thank
messages
you.
like, don't forget the stream team. We recently actually just launched a Twitch stream team as well for anybody who may be interested in that. It is primarily for people who stream TTRPG content. It is called Storytellers Union. If you are interested in finding out more about that, we're going to use it as a great opportunity to help build up TTRPG streams, connect communities with each other, and just have it as a resource for everybody. So you can find more information about that on our website, which is howinerd.com. There, I think I hit everything now.
Nicely done. Nicely
Are you
done.
sure?
Yes,
Are you sure?
I
thank you
think
so
I mean,
much.
I may have to come back again like in another hour and be like, oh, I forgot.
Just call.
Thanks for hanging out,
Come back.
chat.
Yeah,
That's what underscore.
Yeah, thanks for
we
having
live on the internet. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, you guys all have a great night. Thank you again for spending your Thursday evening with me. And